Armour is a pretty complicated mechanic in 7 Days to Die Alpha 19, as it tends to be in most games. There's a lot of numbers and statistics that the game doesn't quite explain. By the end of today's video, I intend to explain each of the armour statistics to the best of my ability, along with all the ways to maximise the effectiveness of armour. Before we jump in, I just want to thank you guys for hitting 500 subscribers. It means a lot to see you guys are enjoying the content I put up. But anyway, let's get on with the video. So the first thing I'm going to explain is the armour statistics. On all armour, you'll see one of two statistics at the top of the armour stats menu, and that is either heavy armour or light armour. In practice, there is actually no difference between a point of light armour or heavy armour. It simply determines which armour perk the given piece of armour is affected by. More on that later. Each point of heavy or light armour translates into 1% damage reduction. So at 50 armour, you'll take 58% less damage. The maximum reduction you can achieve is 98%. Along with that is explosion resistance, which essentially works the same way but with explosion damage. The next statistic is critical resistance. Before I explain how armour affects critical resistance, I'm going to have to quickly explain how critical resistance in general works. Essentially, a player with no armour will have 0% critical resistance. This means that you're vulnerable to critical injuries, like a concussion or a sprained leg. When you put on armour, you'll get a small amount of critical resistance. When you enter combat, you'll have whatever your maximum critical resistance is, depending on armour and perks. With each hit you take, you will lose critical resistance. While the critical resistance is over 0%, you will be immune to critical attacks. But once it hits 0% and lower, you'll be able to take critical hits. Your critical resistance can go below 0% while in combat. This will affect how long it takes to reach your maximum critical resistance again, as while you're not being hit, it will slowly regenerate back. If you do get an injury, it will actually reset your critical resistance back to the max. I actually only discovered that when recording this video. So now that I've explained how critical resistance works, why does it say that putting armour on reduces critical resistance? That's because, and this is the funniest shit I've ever heard, the amount of critical resistance your armour gives you is 10 plus whatever your armour says its crit resist is. So for this helmet, which says minus 5% critical resistance, you actually get 10 plus minus 5 critical resist, which is just 10 minus 5, which is in practice 5 critical resistance. So this helmet will give you 5% critical resist. Remember that. Whatever your armour says is always negative and is being subtractive from 10, and that is the amount of crit resist you'll get. So if it says minus 4%, you're actually getting 6% crit resist, which is why when you compare two items, the one with the lowest number is actually better, because minus 1 is better than minus 2, as it gives you 9% and 8% critical resistance respectively. You can see your current total critical resistance in the trophy menu in the character menu. That is the dumbest mechanic I've ever had the displeasure of explaining. Next, we have stamina. This essentially affects how much stamina you use per second while sprinting. Don't even try to mathematically figure this one out, because a higher stamina per second seems to actually let you run for longer. For example, you can run for the longest amount of time wearing no armour, but when wearing no armour, you'll be using 10 stamina per second, according to the game's menus. In the military armour I was testing, you could run for less time despite the stamina per second being lower than no armour. Then in steel, you could run for even less time. So in practice, you want the armour with the highest stamina per second. So when one piece gives minus 0.9 and one gives minus 0.57, the one that has minus 0.57 would be the one that lets you run for the longest. I assume this is a problem with the way the game's coded, but it really could be represented to the players in a more meaningful way. And it would appear I was wrong, because that was the dumbest game mechanic I've ever had the displeasure of trying to explain. Now on to a mechanic that is much more simple, mobility. If a piece of armour says minus 4 mobility, you'll move 4% slower. Nice and simple. Next, we have noise. Noise is essentially how much your stealth bar goes up whenever you move. All armour, aside from the ghillie suit, has the same visibility, which means that your stealth meter will sit at the same point regardless of what armour you are wearing if you are sitting still. Using armour with a lower noise increase will make your stealth meter move less severely when you make a sound like taking a step. And finally, we have maximum durability. This is just the maximum health of your armour. If your armour's durability reaches 0, it will stop giving you any benefits until you repair it. So now that I've explained the statistics in general, what does that mean in practice? Well, in 7 Days to Die, there are 3 tiers of armour. At tier 1 we have padded armour and scrap armour, tier 2 we have leather armour and iron armour, and at tier 3 we have military armour and steel armour, as well as a few stray pieces of armour which don't fit neatly into that category, like the SWAT helmet or the football helmet. All armour is split into 2 types as well, light or heavy. Padded, leather and military are light armour, scrap, iron and steel are heavy. Generally, light armour will have a lower armour rating, explosive resistance and crit resistance, but will in turn have better stamina usage and less mobility penalties and will produce less noise. If you're wondering why I'm not necessarily telling you the exact statistics of any of these armours, it's because weapons and armour have variable statistics. So for example, you might find a level 6 steel helmet that has 15 armour, but you may find another one that only has 14. These are variable statistics, so just keep an eye out for any higher statistics on the armour you find. Before I jump into how to improve your armour, I'd just like to remind you that if you're enjoying this video, then hit that subscribe button and get ready because this is going to be a lot of info. There are some ways you can improve your armour. First of all, we have mods. The basic plating mod will give you 1 point of armour. The banded armour plating will give you 2 points of armour. Neither armour plating mod will give you any explosion or critical resistance. Then we have fittings mods. These both improve stamina usage, allowing you to run for longer, and reduce mobility penalties. The improved fittings will improve mobility by 2%, and the customised fittings will improve mobility on 3%. Neither fittings mods can be equipped on padded armour, by the way. Then we have connector mods. The muffled connectors will reduce noise generation by 4%. The advanced muffled connectors will reduce noise generation by 8%. Next, we have some temperature mods. The insulated lining and cooling mesh mods will give you 5 resistance to cold and heat respectively, as well as giving you 1 explosion resistance. The other mods will have more general effects like pocket mods and impact bracing. I also really quickly want to mention skills and perk books. Volume 6 of the Urban Combat book will give you the adrenaline perk when in combat, which will remove any mobility penalties armour gives you while you're in combat. And then, the 2 skills we have are heavy armour in the strength tree and light armour in the agility tree. Rank 4 of heavy armour, you'll reduce stamina and mobility penalties by 25% and improve maximum durability by 200% on all armour governed by heavy armour. At rank 4 of the light armour perk, you'll reduce the mobility penalty by 75% and stamina penalty by 50%, and once again improves durability by 200% and only works on light armour, of course. With that, I think I've covered everything about armour. If you've enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.